welcome to the Know Thyself podcast. And I'm here with Daniel.
Sup, wizard?
And I'm Eduardo. And I know that it's really good to hear your voice and actually see your face and have this conversation. It's been too long. And, of course I have all kinds of questions and all kinds of experiences and ideas that have happened in the last, just a year. And I've seen you in between then, but it's just nice to start from here. So, I know before getting on here, we started talking about, how much has changed, but how much is still changing in the time that we're in and how fast it's going. And so you kind of said, hey, listen, there's a few things that I'd like to bring up in regards to that, and what people are feeling and why they might be feeling that way in this present time. So I don't want to say much more. If you want to go ahead and kind of fill me in on what you meant by that, because then I can kind of just go and sort of relate my experiences to such things that you might bring up. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just to kind of mirror it back, it's so good to be back in this space with you and all the collective listeners, because it has been missed, and it has been this unique kind of alchemical journey that we find ourselves on, and it continues. And we really do find ourselves in what you would call a biblical transit that is happening right now in the collective consciousness, and it's going to continue to happen. And that's what we're going to be kind of exploring today, is not so much this new chapter that lies in front of us, but more of a new book that's going to be opening up. And we could approach this from so many different places, but to give it like an overarching theme of what we're talking about is we're talking about the planet Neptune making a transit from the zodiac sign Pisces to the zodiac sign Aries. And, right when we jump in there, and depending on like your astrological language, that could be like, well, what's he really talking about here? But to kind of give it a little bit of a rundown, Neptune rules the zodiac sign Pisces. And so there's always a planet that like rhymes with a zodiac sign, and they're very similar. And what we know about Pisces from our past conversations is Pisces is the most mystical, spiritual sign in all of the zodiac. It's the end of the zodiac. It's the 12. It goes where everything goes to dissolve, right? I still think we should have done the Pisces episode and not said a damn word. Like, it should have just been white noise for 2.5 hours, and it would have been the best episode ever on Pisces, because Pisces is beyond words. You can't collapse what Pisces is, because it's this evolution of like where everything goes to dissolve. And it's like the womb that feeds the rebirth. So It's this aspect of like the ultimate sign, because even when we're thinking about the water element, water's undefeated. We spoke about it in the past. Like, there's a reason why when you play rock, paper, scissors, there's not like a water option, right? Rock is earth. Scissors is going to be fire because it's destruction and it cuts it up. And then paper is going to be air because paper records your thoughts. There's no water, because you would win every time, because water will win every time, because everything will slowly get dissolved by water. It's the floods, it's the deluge, the ending, and it's the beginning. And so Pisces is ruled by Neptune, and Neptune is the most mystical, spiritual planet. Neptune is like your antenna. So if you are like the radio receiver, Neptune is your spiritual antenna that you tune into the spiritual frequencies. And it's kind of like with the relationship with Neptune, it's just like being in your car, being at like 5:50 a.m. on the radio, right? That's a really low bandwidth. And say you're like way out in the country, better yet, say this is like a little hand radio, right? And it's all broken, and like you're out in the woods and you're like trying to get a signal, right? And nothing's coming through. It's all static. Well, it's because like the antenna is broken and it's not being able to pick up the bandwidth. And this is the lens of most materialistic individuals, non-spiritual, because they're like, they're showing you the radio and they're like, see, there's nothing there. There's nothing working. And
Right.
The spiritual individual has taken the antenna and has tuned themselves into it. So they're picking up a different bandwidth. And so like, as you kind of go through the spiritual journey, you start on 5:50 a.m. and then you make your way up higher, 10:80 a.m., 11:60. And then you make your way to FM, and you can make your way to XM and like whatever else. Right. But what it's talking about is this frequency of connection of consciousness coming into you and actually like moving through you, because it's an antenna. It's like a spiritual antenna, and it holds all of your spiritual capacity. It holds your spiritual downloads, your intuitive components of even the collective. It's the planet that rules the mystic understanding, but it's not Scorpio and Pluto where you can like study it in symbolism. Again, Neptune is beyond language. It's beyond the spoken word. It's beyond the written word. There's not much to say about them because it's impossible to contain them, because once you try to define them, that definition dissolves right in front of you, right? It's like this forever evolving thing. Well, your spiritual antenna, Neptune is the one that is receiving the spiritual frequency. And why this is so important for us to be aware of is because Neptune is this spiritual conductor. So this is going from the zodiac sign Pisces to the zodiac sign Aries. This transit is unlike any other transit that we ever experience. If you ever really want to go down rabbit holes, look at the movement from Pisces to Aries, because you're going from 12 to 1. You're going from the end to the beginning. You're going from the book of Revelations to the book of Genesis, Omega, Alpha. And that's because that's how the zodiac wheel is connected, right? So like if you're going from like Taurus to Gemini, that's going from the second sign to the third sign. It's like compounded. It's building off of itself. There's like this connection, right? And you have these qualities as it moves over. Pisces to Aries is 12 to 1. You're taking the most objective, like non-personal sign, which is Pisces, and you're moving into the most personal sign, the most like I am aware of this energy. Aries is this I am fire energy of like feeling the fire inside of yourself and being aware of that fire inside of yourself, right? Pisces, you can't say I am in Pisces. It's impossible because there's no localization. There's no isolation of consciousness because it's where everything goes back to merge together. So like saying I am in Pisces is like building a sandcastle right where the waves are crashing. Like it's not going to work. The wave is just going to keep taking the sandcastle away.
Okay.
That's what like localization of like personal awareness is in Pisces. And so why I'm bringing this up is because for the first time in all of our lifetimes, we're going to have a personal relationship with our spiritual tools for the first time. Like you and I, when you and I were born, Neptune was in Capricorn. Capricorn is not a very personal sign. Capricorn is a father taking care of others, right? There's not a lot of like me energy in Capricorn and like awareness of the self. So then it went from Capricorn in our lifetime to Aquarius. Aquarius is not a personal sign. Aquarius is a sign of the group, the network. When we get to it as the idea of like understanding what's unique about yourself, sure, right? And we did have a little bit of that quality, and we'll talk about that because Aquarius plays another really big part in this grand drama that's kind of unfolding for us. But Aquarius is not personal. And then Neptune went into Pisces, which is the most non-personal zodiac sign with the most non-personal planet. What this is meaning is if you have had your spiritual awakening after 2012, you've never had a personal relationship with your spiritual tools. You haven't, because it's impossible. You've had energy picking up on it. You've had mystical frequencies, and I'm not denying that you haven't had beautiful spiritual experiences, but this energy that's like distributed around you, and it's like in the entire field, is about to get localized inside of you to where you have full access, full activation. There's a lot of components of our lives that we have not been able to excel at one area of life because that door's been closed. That door is now opening. And now we're going to open up this unique potential that has not been present to us. And anytime Neptune goes from the 12, like the sign of Pisces to the sign of Aries, it's revolutionary. Last time this happened was 1860. So a year later, we had the American Civil War. After that, we're going to actually shift our consciousness. Like consciousness actually changes when Neptune completes its cycle, because we went from more like mechanical and quality items that we produced. And after 1860, it's going to move to more industrial quantity of like, how much can we make? The assembly line. Even the businesses in the 1830s and the 1840s within America, they're not around in the 1890s and the 1900s. This industrial age, we have even what like led up to this technological advancement. Well, consciousness changes at this time. Your relationship to consciousness changes. We became more industrial. Now, you gain qualities, but you also lose qualities. Right. Like we lost that mechanical nature. We can't build a building like they did in the 1850s, in the 1840s. There's no way. We can't even destroy those buildings. You know, we can't build gargoyles anymore on buildings. Have you ever seen like an old shoe? That shit is the shit. Like looking at our shoes now, they're weak. Like you could have that your whole life. A pocket watch? Hell no, we can't make pocket watches like we used to. We lost that mechanical kind of energy, and it opened up to this industrial, which paved the way for technological consciousness. Well, that was a shift in consciousness that happened when Neptune went from Pisces to Aries. It always does. And also, it's not just like the economic form that gets revolutionized. It's not just the social form. More importantly, it's the spiritual, because there's new capacities that are introduced to consciousness at this time. And so last time that this happened was when we like rediscovered Reiki, was at this time period. It was when we re-understood like chiropractics and things like this. And at the beginning of a Neptune age, you have people writing about the new qualities. So this is your Rudolf Steiners. This is your Blavatsky's. This is your C.C. Zanes. These are all the people that are writing 2 or 3 signs after Aries. So you see a lot of data of new esoteric understanding when there's Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer, right? And then the latter half studies and builds on what the others brought back into the surface and explored and understood. So there's always these new qualities that are introduced at this time that we don't even have language for right now. There's going to be things that are introduced that we don't have words for at this moment. And, you know, not only is Aries receiving Neptune this time, but 3 months later, Saturn is going to make the same transit. The planet Saturn is going to go from the sign of Pisces to the sign of Aries. And what this is going to do is this electric magnetic energy that is going to become present inside of us. At the end of March, we're going to feel this activation of electromagnetic spiritual energy that's inside of us. But it's almost going to be like uncomfortable for a little bit, because it's all this new energy coming in and you don't know what to do with it. And this always happens with Aries. There's this new energy that's brought in, but usually that takes about 50 to 60 years to dissipate into the collective. Well, Saturn, because it's a dense planet, is going to be the grounding wire. And so what used to take 50 years is going to take 4 years. And we're going to see this like activation of this new spiritual identity. And it's waking up inside of us. And this is Aries. And this is tied to last year when we had the eclipse in Aries. That was an initiation for this. Aries is changing and it will never be the same. No longer is Aries going to be like the jumping out into the world. Aries is now going to be jumping back into itself. Aries is becoming very spiritual through this whole experience. It's going to change Mars as well. If you study Vedic astrology, the signs move over time. Like Taurus, it moves over time. Like Vedic astrology, I'm Aries because it's shifting. Tropical astrology evolves as well, just like Vedic astrology does. It just doesn't change the name of the zodiac signs. They just stay the same, but their qualities change, right? And their aspects change in that kind of way. But the actual sign doesn't change. So it's still going to be called Aries. But with this transit, we're going to have this absolute evolution and revolution of what that quality contains. And it's going to be a fiery activation of the spiritual principles. And leading up to this last year, 2 years, you might have experienced things like disassociation. You might have been a little bit more tired than you used to be. It might have been harder for you to focus on even these spiritual topics that we're looking into. There could even been a lot of external stimulus of home repairs, relationship troubles, financial troubles, whatever it was. This was actually designed by you and your heart. Your heart was actually attracting these events to you because it needed to rewire you. It needed to distract you. It needed you to pull into like, oh, now I have to fix all the pipes in my house. And this is where all my focus is going, because it couldn't have you doing all this spiritual work right now, because it's rewiring you, because we're about to go from being 5-watt light bulbs to 60-watt light bulbs. And it's going to turn on, and we're going to get our game on. And then we're going to turn our flame on. And there's going to be this activation of not only energy, but spiritual sovereignty. And it's a really interesting too, because it's not just Aries involved here. There's another sign, and this sign just received a planet very recently, and it's Aquarius. And right here, there's a really unique esoteric connection. Aries and Aquarius, they both start with the letter A. If you want to find some really cool and investigate some really cool esoteric information that you won't find in any book, if a zodiac sign starts with the same letter, there's a deep connection there. It's a very, very deep connection. So we can look at it as like Leo and Libra. Leo is the awareness of like the ego and the awareness of the self within you. Libra is the awareness of like the ego inside of the person in front of you. Right? So Leo would be like your ego. And then Libra is the understanding that I also have an ego, and we're like coming together. And that's what the two L's do. And that's why when you put the two L's together, you actually get like a rectangle or a square. And it's telling you this is what the relationship is. It's between like consciousness and consciousness, but everything is consciousness in itself. And that's what the two L's are going to stand for. Cancer, Capricorn. Cancer is the entrance into this reality. It's the womb. It's the entrance in. You know, we spoke about this a lot when we were doing Alice Bailey's 12 Labors of Hercules, because Cancer is the entrance in. Capricorn is the exit out. It's the death. Capricorn represents Saturn. Cancer represents Moon. Both of these are the ones that not only give you life, but they start ticking it away right when they do. A waxing and waning and a depletion aspect. The law of thermodynamics is operated between this Cancer Capricorn connection, right? The two C's coming together. You look at Sagittarius and Scorpio. Both are representations of serpent wisdom. That's where the serpents are going to be represented, Sagittarius and Scorpio. Now, it's very obvious with Scorpio that it's serpent wisdom, but so is Sagittarius. And they're teaching two different paths to find God, because the serpents were the most deepest spiritual seekers. Sagittarius is climbing this like golden staircase to God through like philosophy, through religion, through character development, right? But you find God at the end of that staircase. Well, Scorpio is the spiral staircase down inside of you, going deep into your shadow, understanding the aspect of what everybody sees and what they don't see. And you take that staircase down deep inside of you. Well, you find God on the other end too. It doesn't matter what way you go, you're going to find God. But that's why they're the two S's of Scorpio and Sagittarius. And that's why when you take those S's and you combine them together, you get the number 8, which belongs to Scorpio because it's also the representation of infinite, right? Same thing with 6 and 7. They do the same aspect of creating and setting you up so you can embrace the number 8, which is Scorpio, which is serpent wisdom, which is pretty much like what our podcast is about, right? You know, everything on the podcast is pretty much connected to Scorpio. It's alchemy, it's tarot, it's astrology, it's symbolism, right? It's death and rebirth, it's the Kundalini. It's all of these things. Well, we can see these like unique connection through these letters. Well, Aries and Aquarius is the A to A connection. It's the alpha to alpha connection, which is you in God and God in you. And both of these are looking for a personal relationship with your oversoul. Now, there are two different ways of doing this, but they're going to be working together. And this is going to be really important for us to understand, because this is what's going to be activated and this is what we're going to be moving towards. But Aries, how it gives you your individual connection to the life force or the oversoul or God, whatever you like to call it. Aries is the fire that burns you to go on your own journey. It allows you to step and follow your own path, follow the beat of your own drum, right? And what's going to be turning on with Aries is we are going to really get tuned in to the understanding of how you connect to God and how God connects to you, and not worrying about any validation needed from anybody else. It's between you and God. Nobody else has any say on it. If that's how you get connected to it, that's how you get connected to it. And we're really going to start to stand up for that aspect of how we connect to the universe, without regards to people being like, oh, that's not the right way to do it, right? There's these medicine men, right, in Eastern Mongolia. And I think we've spoke about this before, but they do a ritual where they like drink grain alcohol. They spin around in a circle and they say this mantra, and they do it so much that they like fall down. Sometimes they throw up. They're just all over the place, but then they break out into this trance and they have this like really spiritual experience from that. Well, you know, the yogi maybe in like Scottsdale might be like, oh, I don't think that's the right way to do it. You know, I don't know if that's right. And these shamans are like, we don't give a fuck. Like, we don't give a shit what you think. This is between me and God. You have no say. You have no jurisdiction on how I get connected to the life force. I'm not going to tell you how to find it, but you have no ability to tell me. This is the Aries energy that's turning on to us. And we're all going to need to localize that connection. It's not that it's just a potential. It's where the evolution of consciousness is asking us to go. And so we have this A with Aries, which is this action aspect of it. Well, Aquarius, who just received Pluto in November, Aquarius is the other A. Aquarius is the unique pattern of your DNA. What is God uniquely trying to experience within you? What's it trying to unfold in you that it doesn't unfold in anybody else? So it's a very personal blossoming and unfurling, almost like a flower that happens here. And it's the code of your seed, which is your DNA. And it's the aspect of unfolding your DNA to the fullest extent you possibly can to truly embrace what God was independently trying to experience through you. And at the end of a time cycle, at the end of an age, God has already experienced itself in so many ways that it yearns to have this differentiation at the end, right? And so it's like yearning for us all to like break open the seed of our DNA and get down into it and understand it, because there's no limit to this unfoldment of what's authentically you. It's a forever blossoming flower. It just depends on like how much you run along the petals to open it up, but you can open it up forever. And whatever is an Aquarius inside of you is yours. It's uniquely yours, and nobody can do it the way you do it with Aquarius. It's your most unique aspect. Well, that's also what's turning on. And so not only are these getting activated, we haven't had access to some of these. Like there's fixed timelines in your chart where there's sometimes you don't have the ability to access this energy, or not to the potential of mastering it, right? Like say you're very energetically sensitive, you might up to the age of like 30, doesn't matter how much you study metaphysics, you still might have energy that leaks in on you from the collective, right? And then all of a sudden at 30, a transit happens, and all of a sudden you can like fully control your energy for the first time. And it does this. It does this because it teaches you through that, because sometimes it takes complete control away from you early in life. So when you do get to this point, you take it seriously and you activate it. Because remember when it sucked back then? You know, it's like, how much better is this now? Well, this is happening for everybody in their chart at Aries and Aquarius. And it's also happening in their chart where Pluto is and where Mars is. It's also going to be affecting the first house and the 11th house. Everybody is going through this very, very intense activation right now. between these energies. And so I just did a ramble. Like, we haven't talked in so long. And then I just was like, chatty Cathy over here. So I apologize because I've been like trying to get that out forever. And it's one of those things we've had a lot of independent conversation about it with the natal charts and the courses. We've been speaking a lot about it, but we haven't been able to speak about it on the collective. And this transit, even though it's starting to get attention, is vastly overlooked. This is so overlooked. And it's such a
Why do you think that is?
thing to explore. Well, I think some of it is, it's not the Wild West that like you and I grew up in the esoteric scene when there was so many different teachers, there were so many different websites, right? Now you're reliant on what YouTube wants to show you. Well, YouTube really into Lionsgate, which is great. Lionsgate's a big deal, but we made Lionsgate a big deal because it's the 8-8 portal, but it's not really the 8th month. That's not God's 8th month. That's man's 8th month. January, like the universe doesn't recognize January as the first month of the year. It recognizes spring as the first year. Like October 8th would be the 8-8, right? So, but we, because of our consciousness and our attention, we've made that a bigger day than it is because of the date. And it is a big day, but it's got nothing to do with like a transit of this magnitude because we're even operating on the Gregorian calendar. Things like drunk, you know what I mean? It's all over the place. It's just like August came out of here because of like Augusta. Like, it's not a true calendar. With the Gregorian calendar, we're off on time, which is a good representation why our cultures and our societies are kind of off because like we don't know where we are in time. But no matter what the calendar says, the planets are the timekeepers and they're the ones that mark time. Like the study of astrology, you know how people will say, oh, well, in the book of Enoch, he says astrology is a bad thing. And we don't see the word astrology in a lot of ancient texts. Yeah, because they called it time. They called it astrology. Astrology was the subject of worshiping the zodiac signs and starting to make gods out of them. That's why in books, you always hear them say astrology is bad. That is, they're not gods. They're archetypal energies. They're not things to be worshiped. That's what astrology was in the ancient world, was given the word of the worship of these signs. They didn't call astrology astrology. They just called it time because that's what it is. Well, the timekeeper and these ultimate timekeepers are making some like really, really big moves now. This is not a new chapter that we're stepping into. This is a new book. This is going to be revolutionary, not only in economics, it's going to be revolutionary in like technology. People have been preparing for this because it's kind of like a flood that's almost going to happen. Not so much like a physical flood, but there is going to be a lot of turbulence around the end of March, April, and May. I could see the economy going down in April and May and coming around in the mid-May and then like restabilizing at the end of May and things like that. And we spoke about this in the past too, of how there's been a creative stunt within all of us, like in even like culture and stuff, like music and movies. We couldn't, for some reason, the last like 5 years, we couldn't make a movie that wasn't remakes. It was like, Rocky versus whoever, but it was just like remakes of old movies. It's because Neptune was in Pisces. There was no new ideas coming. Well, we're about to have this renaissance of new ideas. Now, because of Aquarius, this is probably going to mean a huge step forward with like AI technologies and that whole thing for good and bad reasons. We're going to see more people willing to just put the headset on and live in the headset kind of thing as this kind of approaches, right? There's going to be this activation, but even within the social medias, I think one of the social medias is going to dissolve in this time and there'll be an upbringing of a new social media. There's going to be new technologies that are going to be coming in. Companies have been preparing for this. Disney knows exactly what they've been doing these last couple of years because like Disney didn't want to be on the top at this period. They're trying to bury themselves in the ground. And a lot of companies did do this by attacking like half of their customers with things that the customers weren't very comfortable with because they didn't want to be at the top because the top gets sliced down at this period. When Aries gets over there, they slice the top of it. So Disney were trying to bury themselves by ostracizing everybody in their fan base, like Star Wars. Like they've made Star Wars so angry. Like even the aspect of like lightsabers, like people recover from a lightsaber hit now, like faster than I've recovered from like eating a bean burrito. Like, it's just like, it's no big deal. We're like back in the day, like it vaporized Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? Like in the aspect of like moving away from the esoteric principles that Star Wars used to be based off of and more to cultural, social kind of aspects. Well, it doesn't really fit, nor does it touch the essence of who you are inside. Well, Disney knows this. They have 3 Star Wars movies planned for after this transit, and they're going to go exactly back to their esoteric principles. And we're all going to be like, oh, the Disney revival. Oh, remember when they came back and Disney had to come back with Star Wars, and everybody's like, yeah. And Disney's like, we effing knew what we were doing. Nike's doing it. They're all doing it. Like anybody who has ostracized that, it's in this process, because this is that revolution that kind of happens. It's like this aspect of the decaying of the dinosaurs and the opening of the new. And at the same time, it's going to be activating energy inside of us that we've never had a relationship to. We've never been able to access, and to an amplitude that we've never been able to get to. And so again, I told you like a minute ago, I was like, I want you to talk. And then I'm like, I got blah, 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 blah. I haven't talked to you in so long, blah, blah, blah. Even though we like just talked a couple days ago, but still it's too long.
No, it's all good, man. It's actually a really refreshing moment to just kind of like give you the floor to hear, obviously you have a wealth of knowledge in regards to how to sort of not necessarily compartmentalize, but place a lot of these nuances happening in people's lives, whether it's in the corporate environment, whether it's in the media environment, or whether it's just things that you can tell are happening right before your eyes with regards to social media tools that every person, even if they're not in a job that requires them to use these tools, is noticing as well. It's like, oh, I'm not getting the same satisfaction I was getting in terms of this form of creativity or this form of communication or this form of connecting with other people. And I saw the writing on the wall, and you can see it by like people's desperation on their own ventures that they're on. So whether it's like a retreat that they started or whether it's an online business they started, they're like, oh, something's slipping from beneath me and I can't quite put a finger on it. And so they're taking courses or they're learning about what could be the better way to get the person's attention that they're trying to reach. And I feel like that's the wall that I think everybody's hitting simultaneously. They're just wondering, like, where is everybody's mind at right now in terms of like whether it's consumerism, whether it's spirituality. I mean, consumerism, like it's on the low totem pole, right? But you're talking about a lot of things like franchises for movies, and you're talking about a lot of things like that are doing their thing and it's not working out for them for some reason or the other, or those who are just trying to create a business and then amplify their business by means of like AI and other technological advances that they want to use for themselves. However, all of this is happening no matter how you want to put it. I always say things to make them very simple, that if you were to wake up tomorrow for the first time on this planet, you wouldn't know the evolution of what got us here. You would just think this is how it is. This is what it's like. And this is how you reach other humans like me. And this is how you connect with other people. There's a language that we all must learn in order to speak it, but there's an internal language that we also all must learn how to speak. And we're operating instinctively on that language. I can tell you that just by my 1.5-year-old. He doesn't know all the nuances of what's out there yet, but we can communicate heart to heart. And I feel like a lot of people are wanting to communicate in that regard, more instinctively, more internally, but the patterns have changed and they're changing all the time. They've never stopped, but they've changed in a way that everybody's kind of bearing witness to. On 2 realms, right? The realm of the external, which is all the things we've created, whether it's electronics, music, pop culture, consumerism, and then the internal, which is affected by that change on the external. And so there's an imbalance right now that I think everyone's looking for. But instead of just being patient and waiting for that shift to occur, as you're talking about, they're trying to prepare themselves. They're trying to get there before anybody else can get there. But it's like, everybody's doing it. Any board meeting I've ever entered in the last couple of years, that's all people are talking about. Anything I do for corporate videos, if there's a corporate speaker up there, this is what he's talking about. He's using different languages in terms of like whether it's like a law firm or some kind of orthopedic conglomerate. They're talking about these same goals that they want to reach, but why are we not reaching them? And they're frustrated. And what they're saying in terms of reaching you, the person, like, how can we connect with you again so things can be back on track and we can get through Q3 or 4 and have the profits we once had? And it's like, okay, but this just isn't resonating with human nature right now, with humankind. And I do think it's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. And it's already been making people uncomfortable. So anyways, the reason I'm now going on my mini rant is just to fulfill, or to basically put my 2 cents into everything you're saying. Whether or not you're not familiar with these kinds of terms, whether or not you're not familiar with this podcast, you've been feeling this all around you. It could be a complete stranger who's sitting next to you and they're like, why are we doing things this way? Or why are things not working out for us? Or why are things seeming like they're moving so fast and we can't seem to catch up? And a lot of things you're saying in terms of the energy that is affecting these individuals to then lead them to make these questions all has sort of a map that you're sort of beautifully putting out for someone to maybe take away and understand how to follow those patterns, or quietly be patient and see where things are going to unfold. Like you were talking about that blooming flower, just like constantly opening up to new layers that are going to be coming. So don't worry about whether or not you went on too far of a rant. I just like to listen to you and your perspective on something like this, because again, you open a conversation like this for anyone. I'm sure you've done this with your charts. I'm sure you've done this with like maybe even like a loved one or a parent or someone, and just quietly listen to what they have to say, because they're not going to say something you don't know already, but they might think you don't think that they're thinking the same way as you are. They'll say, eventually they'll get to that point where they'll say, you probably think I'm crazy, but I just feel like things are just different now. It's like, no, I know I'm older, but I just think things are different now. And you're like, no, you're not crazy.
Yeah.
And things are changing, and the patterns are different, and the way things are laid out are not the same as they once were, but they will find a new way of showing themselves. It's just going to take time. And if you're prepared for it, eventually you'll understand there's like a sort of resurgence, like what you said about like the franchise in Disney. I can already see them being prepared for something like this. So then they go, we did it. We actually prepared well for this, because everyone's like, oh, this is what I was missing. It's like, yeah, we knew that it was coming back, but we prepared multiple movies that can kind of speak the language you're now ready to receive or to understand with that regard. So fascinating stuff, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the essential spiritual tool of knowing where you are in time, how important that is. Because like we were kind of talking about when I went on my rant about the calendar. Well,
No rant.
we are already a little bit lost in time because we're not on a correct timeline. Our months, the days, the leap year, all of it, we're off. We're not in the correct time. And we have all these different calendars that we've all mixed up together. There's no way of understanding the whole collective evolution of consciousness by seeing it, right? And calendar is like a program. The idea of, okay, I obviously have to like live in accordance to the calendar, but tapping into these astrological movements, well, now you're working with time. And when you're with time, it allows you to move with it and understand it. Because this last year was very much about resting and releasing things. It wasn't supposed to be that active of a year. The year was about actually spending time with the person that you currently are, because that person is going to feel different from you next year at this time, because we're all going to go through such a big evolution. And it's not going to be, you don't know who that person was. It's almost more of the aspect of like when little baby Daniel was a little feral nugget running around, and it was Christmas Eve. Well, as a Taurus sun, I was going ape shit about Christmas. I was so excited. I was so excited to open presents the next day that I'm throwing up because of it, right? Making a scene. And my parents like, you're ridiculous. Like, you've been bad. Like, you're not even getting many presents. You weren't even like good to get presents, right? But I'm still like losing my marbles over opening presents the next day. I remember that Daniel. I don't have a relationship with that Daniel now. Like, I'm not like calling my parents on Christmas Eve and being like, hey, can I come over and like open up my presents and stuff like that at like 30 years old? No, I don't do that. I don't have a relationship anymore with that. Well, that's what a lot of the experience is going to be felt within ourselves. And even things that you thought you were never going to be able to expunge out of yourself is going to be able to fall off.
I just love what you're saying. That's exactly what's happening. I think what you just said, though, about the present is a great analogy or a great metaphor, because I remember when I was a kid, I used to get scared of growing up in terms of not like will I ever grow up and be this old saggy man and that kind of fear. That's not what I mean. I would tell my mom things like, I love skateboarding so much that I want you to know right now that I'm never not going to like skateboarding. My mom's like, okay, like you're fine. Love it as long as you want to love it. Like what? But I was trying to declare because I knew that eventually I was going to I'd seen patterns as a child of eventually you get done with playing with toy, action figures. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to let this one slip out. This one means so much to me. And it actually has still been in my life. And I think in a lot of people who are in their like mid to late 30s, if they like that kind of culture, they always kept a nugget of that with them, whether it's like in clothing or just understanding where those people are now or, all of that skate culture. But I've noticed that a lot with people right now, kind of in some of the statements that they make, you know what I mean? It's either they're like ready to let go of something that they once cherished very much and found to be the most important thing in their life, or they've found a way to sort of modify it and go, hey, I still like my Christmases with my family, but I'm not so caught up in the present that I'm receiving that day, but more so like I get to see my siblings again, maybe have a couple of stories that are exchanged, and that part's always still pretty good and pretty real. So, I just, it's up to the individual, right? To be like, how are they going to face this new phase of themselves, either with rejection or an acceptance. And I think that's always like what we're trying to do as people, right? Is like just trying to either accept ourselves in a new place that we're in, or we're at a battle where we're rejecting this change and that's occurring within us because of fear or because of doubt of what this new phase of ourselves might be. I mean, it's ridiculous, but like back in 2012, a lot of the reasons, like I remember when we were already talking about a lot of this information, another path I ended up taking was just with those self-help kind of books that you didn't know better. You're just like, oh, this guy's speaking my language. He's like, love is stronger than anything else. And there's always going to be the polar opposite, which is fear. And you're like, yeah. But then I would get to like halfway through the book and it was like something made for someone who was like either in a depression or someone who was like not aware of themselves, or they wanted to gain some kind of knowledge that would give them ultimate profitability in their career. And then I would put the book kind of down. I'm like, this wasn't it. But I find myself back in like curious listening to a lot of those kinds of books, although they have nothing to do with money and they have nothing to do with, bettering yourself in that regard of like, comparing stories of Marcus Aurelius's like journal entries, but more so just like simple mountaineering books that are much older, and the journal entries that they are writing about on why they're approaching this phase of their life and why they must do this. And so when I found myself reading these books again, I was like, man, I don't think I'm going to be climbing any mountains again soon. But something's drawing me back into these, like something's like telling me to like look deeper into the words that they're writing down about the journey that they're about to go on while they're leaving everything that's comfort at home. And I'm like, why? And I've gone through, I think 4 books now. And I'm like, why am I here again? This is interesting, and I'll figure that out and we'll talk about that in another episode. But all I'm saying is like, it's moving with inside me as well right now, where it's pulling me back into this kind of a change in this course. So I'm starting to pull in so much more information, and I'm still doing things, whether it's like with all my cameras. I mean, I'm filming full time. And I've never filmed so much before, but I'm also editing more than ever. And that has to do with a lot of different components in terms of technology that are coming in at a fast pace that are allowing me to like literally rewrite the way people see visuals, at least for an audience that I have to present to. I'm okay with it. But there's other people I meet who are not okay with it. Not me doing it, but they're just like, oh, things are changing. Like this is going to happen. And then AI is going to take over. And I'm like, no. Like, why can't you just like place yourself into those new patterns and see what can be used from you, incorporated into, these things that you're sort of ultimately afraid of. But that's just me. Right.
Yeah.
So.
No, absolutely. And as we march forward to these really grand transits that are going to be happening, it brings back the consciousness into the vessel. And that's also something that's going to be happening with this Aries and this Aquarius, is this activation of being able to localize yourself and have that I am moment and be aware of the conscious observer that's participating in this spiritual construct. And one of the big things that this new era, this new age is calling upon is utilizing everything in your own unique way. The time of Pluto being in Capricorn, in that old age, things are changing. And so even in spiritual qualities, like an astrologer or a tarot reader, right? If you follow one school, black and white, and it's the only school you've ever looked at, and this is the only way I've looked at it, I do it this way, and this is the way I was taught, and this is the way that I've always done it. That's still going to work in this coming age. But the individual who has made their own personal relationship to how they read the zodiac chart, and they make their own personal way of understanding the zodiac chart with all of their learning, they still learn everything, but they've created their own unique network of like, this is how this subject speaks to me. They're going to be light years ahead of you within a year or two. So this aspect of you really are going to be turning on of what is unique about me and how do I activate that? We just talked about how Neptune's a spiritual, mystical planet, and it's going to be in the first time in a personal sign. It's also going to be the first time that we get to play with spiritual fire. We've never had Neptune, you and I at least, in a fire sign. Now, obviously, we were born in the late 80s. If you were born earlier, you would. But everybody alive right now, their Neptune could be in Scorpio. Their Neptune could be in Virgo. But beyond that, those people have passed on. So it's a completely different kind of generation of, it's going to be an awakening of like all awakenings. And it's going to activate these new qualities and these understandings. And one of the things that the Aries really turns on, this like inner validation of ourselves, as well as this like understanding that we don't need validation from the outside. No, I'm exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what I need to be doing. It's the idea of like, we just are going to have this deeper understanding of a consistency that we are it. We are God experiencing itself within this form, learning and evolving itself. We are it experiencing it. You know, like you and I could be like, you know, having a fire together, when you could look at me and be like, Daniel, you are it experiencing it. And I could be like, whoa, man, you're right. And like right back at you, like you are it experiencing it. Right. And then I could get up and walk 10 feet, look at my phone, and the phone is like, it's like my bank in the red. All of a sudden, I've already immediately forgot that like I am God experiencing itself as God. And all of a sudden I'm like this human forgetting that I am this eternal soul. Well, that memory and that knowing of who we are and what we are actually doing here, that's going to be as natural as blinking for us. We're not going to forget anymore of who you are. That process is part of like the Pisces objective area. We're about to get like very, very aware of like who we are, what we're doing, what our purpose is, what our worth is, and, you know, how we activate. And it allows for us to step into this energy and to put it into this almost kind of force. It's a really fascinating thing because this is the last period. And actually the moon in Leo, which we are actually connecting on right now, was a marking point of this event happening, this transit, because this was the last full moon that was going to be in a fire moon before this transit. So it was like this marking point, and we've all kind of turned on and we're kind of getting activated up to this. But up until this point, it was okay to like take rest this year and like be softer on yourself and really utilize the time again to like release anything you don't want to step through that door with, because it's in this new reality. And because we've been in this stage of Pisces, you could just drop anything into the void. Anything that you have right now that you've always been sticking on you and you feel, I'm never going to get away from this pattern, I'm never going to get away from this habit. Now's the time. Drop it into the void. There's no time like now to drop something into the void. Anything you don't want to walk through that door with come, you know, March 30th, you want to drop into the void right now. And like, you know, also be patient. We've been kind of speaking about rest because it's about to get really busy. You're about to get very busy and you're about to get very activated. And if you've been sitting in like a decision point, now's not the time to make the decision. It's going to get very clear in a couple months of your direction. Everybody is. If you force it, you're going to end up having to make two mistakes. Like, you're going to try to put something into action, and then you're going to have to put something else into action when you actually get this realization that's going to happen later this year. This activation of the knowing. It's not so much a believing that I am it, experiencing it. It's a knowing that I am it, experiencing it. It's this unique personal reflection with the oversoul. And this is part of other bigger patterns that are happening in the collective. But this activation is something that I think we'll continue talking about as we like make our way closer to it.
Yeah.
But this is not a bad time to rest, especially like we kind of make our way into Pisces and stuff like that. And this moon starts in this waning form. Resting and releasing is what this time is calling. It's kind of like the example that I've been kind of like giving people this year is, do you remember like nap time in kindergarten?
Yeah.
Right. You would put out your little blanket, or I had a towel. Everybody else had a blanket. I don't know what the hell I was doing. I had like a little Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle tower. Right. But like me and Noah, my homeboy, we did anything but nap during nap time. We like army crawled around, poked, that one kid in the head, like while he's doing it. I used to you know what I used to like to do? This is like to this day, I'm like, what was funny about that? We used to like to go to kids' lunch boxes and switch out like the snack packs. Like if one had a vanilla and one had a chocolate, we like switch them out. And we thought it was so fun. We'd be sitting in the lunchroom like, oh, he's eating the vanilla one. They had no idea. They're like, oh, my mom just gave me a vanilla one today. And we were just losing our shit, right? So either way, me and Noah, we're not napping. Well, fourth grade comes around. I would do anything for that teacher to shut up, to close out those lights and let me lay down on the floor for 20 minutes. I would have done anything, but you should have napped when you had the time. And that's what this period of time has been. It's been a period of resting because it's about to get busy. It's not only going to get busy inside of you, it's going to get busy in the collective. But this aspect of doubt in yourself, doubting your spiritual purpose, this is going to be the most uncomfortable time that we're in right now. But getting to the other side, you will never have doubt again. And you've seen this in the last like 2 years. People that were on the spiritual path might have like fallen back into like religions, and everybody's got their own path. I'm not judging on anybody, but the spiritual path at this point, it's giving everybody the last shake off because it's about to get real. You are either in it or you need to go and like find something else because this is about to get turned on really deeply. And unfortunately, for the individuals that have like left and gone to religions, when Neptune makes that transition, the lifeboats are getting taken away. People's security blankets are leaving. Security blankets are leaving because we're coming to the end of the construct that like it's undeniable now that you have to see the mirage. Even people who like are dedicated sports watchers are like, I don't know. It kind of feels like this thing's rigged. They're starting to like see through this. We're seeing through the political scene. We're seeing past the facade that they give us. And we're like seeing this real aspect of it. It's everything that we actually had that one of our last discussions on during the year of the dragon of like uncovering. It's all uncovering, but everything that is a facade is about to get shown to us. And that's what also this year of the snake is going to be about. The only security blanket is you and it. It's that making that relationship to that oversoul. This is what I stand for. This is who my allegiance is to. And that is what we're going to be like approaching in this era, but it's coming with tools. So it's not like you have to do this in the way that you're doing it. It's going to come with tools, and you're going to be able to utilize these tools in ways you've never done before. It's almost when it comes to some of these like spiritual qualities that are going to be opening up inside of you or in myself as well. You were in the tumble dry of like the dryer for like all these years, and you were just tumbling. And then all of a sudden it stopped and the door opened and you got out, and all of a sudden you're in a laundry room with like a washing machine and a drying machine. And all of a sudden you're able to do the dirty laundry, which is like your ancestral like healing and your past traumas. You put in the washer, put in the dryer and fold it. And it's all of a sudden it's all organized. And you're like, well, why did it take so long? Well, That's part of the spiritual process. You have to show an initiation that you want to do it. And then it just opens up the capacity for you. You know, like it's even like when you're studying the esoteric and the occult, you're not really like memorization is a tool, but memorization isn't everything when it comes to learning. We were taught that because like that's what our public school taught us. But like memorization is just one tool. You study the esoteric and the occult because when you study these symbols, when you study these topics, you're quite literally knocking on the door of your subconscious, and you keep studying and you keep knocking. And then one day it just opens it up. And then you have a pathway of information that comes in, but it's not like you memorized everything. You know, it's like, no, you just have a pathway that opens up. You get tapped in. Same thing with any kind of subject. You get tapped into it. You don't have to memorize everything. It's an initiation to open up that path, that portal inside of your brain. So you can now get that stream of consciousness coming through you. But you have to show the dedication. You have to show the work that like, I desire this and I'm disciplined. And so that's what study is, but it's never all about the memorization.
Say it's like talking to you, man, is always such a treat. And I know that you might think that, and I know that you might, leave this, wondering that I get what I needed to get out of this conversation, even if you did most of the talking. And the answer is yes, because I can't have a conversation with you if I don't listen to perspectives and ideas that I just like don't even consider for myself until I open the ability to get to speak with you about such things that I've been wondering deep inside by myself late at night, going to bed, looking into my son's eyes as like people in my family who are from an older generation are starting to pass on. All of these things sort of bring those ideas to the forefront, but there's no one to really converse with about it because everybody's moving, everyone's busy. It's like, hey, sorry for the loss of this family member, and hey, it was good to see you, but we'll talk again. I'm like, no, but what does this actually mean? And I do want to get back to the point where you said about memorization just being a tool of what learning truly is, because I think that's what really matters the most for me right now. It's not so much like all the things that we've talked about, read about, and studied and retained, but more so the application of them during these like very interesting times or situations that get presented in front of you. So all I want to say is with all my love, man, I just love talking to you about all this, and if there's anything else that, we didn't cover tonight, I'm sure we're going to cover it in the next episodes to come. And to all of our listeners that are still out there, I'm just one of you listening to Daniel explain things to me that I, have often wondered to myself, and I can actually have this amazing privilege to talk to with him about, but not just talk about, but share these like sort of episodes that are occurring in all of our lives. And so anyways, I love you, man.
Hey man, I love you. You are the definition of what it means to be a great man. And it's such an honor to share this space with you. And, the excitement about coming back together, at least in this like area, because like, it's kind of so funny too, because life got so busy. We don't get to see each other as much. But when people would ask me in the natal charts and things like that, like, how is like you and Eduardo, are you guys like good? I'm like, we're closer than we've ever been, even though we don't get to see each other as much. Like when I see you, the ridiculous smile that I have on my face for like weeks after, like I probably creeped so many people out at the grocery store because like I saw you last Tuesday and now I'm like bagging apples like a goddamn crazy man, right? And it's just like absolutely amazing, man. Thinking about how long we've been able to share this experience, everything that we've been able to share, and if I could leave it on one thing, it would be with each and every one of us, you and myself included. And we've had beautiful spiritual moments of awareness and awakening. And I'm not taking anything away from anybody's spiritual moment. I believe that it was absolutely beautiful. And when I say this, I'm saying this about myself as well. We have only got the chips and salsa of the meal. Like we barely got we haven't even gotten the appetizer. Those are coming out. They haven't even been put on the table yet. And we haven't even got the full course of our spiritual relationship with things. It hasn't even begun yet about what we're about to get into. And truly, every Neptune cycle has been setting the table for this one that we're going to be eating at. So I just want to say it's just like such an honor to be on this journey with each and every one of you. And we all chose here to be here at this time. And it's never anything that we should be afraid of in the construct with all the things happen. It's more of just, we have to remember that, like, who we are and what we're doing here. And it's, you know,
Right.
love, truth, and wisdom, and, you know, hanging out with the people we love and sharing these kind of experiences. And so, man, it's the best to be back in this space with you. And so is there anything else that you wanted to share?
With that being said, though, I guess until next time.
Until next time.